tell me a little bit about the journey, what got you into therapy and then, moving from like working for a company and starting your own thing. Let's talk about the tough parts. Like what were some of your roadblocks? What were some of your challenges that you were met with when deciding to go the entrepreneurial route?
Mm, there were many. And I'm here.
Yeah.
So I survived. So high five for me.
There you
But
go.
some of the things that I feel were roadblocks was, first of all, business politics. You have to know how to market yourself. You need to understand how business works. There were a lot of times that I would step into an opportunity and I'm presenting myself not knowing this is already set aside for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
This is not quite how the relationship ought to work.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding how to build business relationships, pour into them, showing up so people recognize who you are, so you are more of a thought leader than a stranger. That was one of my biggest roadblock. I'm an introvert extrovert, so people might think I'm an extrovert. I'm really an introvert.
Really?
Yeah.
Talk me on that. Well, what does that mean? Like,
it means that if you see me out, I look like an extrovert. I'm having the greatest time. I love people. I draw people in. I love to dance. But the majority of the time, I'm fully exhausted by something like that and probably won't come out for a very long time. And
Gotcha.
I love to be isolated in my beautiful, cozy house with my books and my family and my plants. And that is my most desired place to be. So it takes a lot to kind of get me out. I got to be with the right people.
Gotcha.
So I can have the right energy. Yeah.
I've heard there's a word called an ambivert. People that are like, and I'm very similar, right? Like if you knew me from like events and stuff like that, it'd be like, extrovert. But I definitely feel you on like, I like my alone time.
Yeah.
Like I could literally sit, in my room, relax, either reading or watching something.
Yeah.
YouTube, I go on a rabbit hole YouTube and not talk to nobody and be completely fine.
Yeah. It's even times I have to disconnect socially. Like my friends that know me understand that, okay, Tamar's not answering as long as she tells me like she doesn't want to be in the scene this month.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'll come back around like, hey,
come out of
let's
hibernation.
go outside.
Yeah. That's enough outside time. See you next
quarter
season.
Exactly.
So you were talking about the challenges around the politics.
Yeah. I learned that there are certain people or certain entities or certain situations where there's no one to tell on nobody. Who's not following the right order, who's being biased. It's just, how are you going to maneuver in and out of that business relationship?
Yeah.
There was times I had to walk away from relationships because there was a character flaw that was too big in the individual for me to make this great money that's on the table.
Talk to me about that. Without saying names.
Yeah, of course. People, I'd like to think that I'm a good person, where no one is perfect. But I like good people. I like positive people. I like people who are genuinely kind for the most part. So I think that sometimes people hide behind the guise of positive leadership. And as you get to know them, you realize that you're a very toxic and unkind person. And I don't want to do business with you, even if it will yield significant money. My spirit doesn't align with you. If it wasn't for this contract, I would never sit in the same space as you. I'm a very spiritual person too, so what grounds you? I need someone who kind of is grounded in something bigger than themselves. And I look for that in business relationships. Right or wrong, I'm not sure, but it works for me. My best relationships that do yield are people who I like and I trust. Bigger pivots, once I got into like 3-4 years of business, I wanted more. I wanted a building.
Yeah.
I want real estate, and I did get said building. I am in real estate. I do have a little baby portfolio, but that is one of the hardest things I've had to really juggle. Being a businesswoman, securing contracts, leading your workforce, and managing your own building is very complicated because that's a whole different world over there. You got to deal with the
Yeah.
city, you got to deal with architectural designs, you got to deal with managing the building, the roof, the underneath of the building, you
Yeah.
know. And I've gone through. Let me just paint this picture real quick. I projected what I should be making when in 2016. I grew so much that my plan to scale was a no-brainer. Just enhance everything that I'm doing, add in transportation. Make sure your client doesn't need anything from anyone. You want therapy? Got it. You need transportation? Got it. You need someone to work at your family? Got it. Everything in one shop. And the pandemic derailed my entire plan because of proximity. How can I run a teen center that's supposed to be filled with kids if you're telling me 1 kid per 10 foot? How can I run a successful transportation company when you're telling me 1 kid per car and my insurance is like $2,000 because I'm carrying babies?
Well, that messes up the whole business plan.
And so when I tell you, that was probably one of the hardest, because all my plans were messed up from the pandemic, but all it allowed me to do was think up something else, smart girl. You're so smart. Sit down.
So we ran into challenges. 2020 came, kind of messed up your business plan. You had to pivot. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, the business started in 2013. We doubled, triple income for several years, and you know, right before the pandemic, it was time to kind of think big, scale out. And so I created a business plan. Like I said, I was working with a lot of entrepreneurial programs in the community, so that's where I got my business support from. You know, places like SBA. Knownpreneurs, you know, and places like that. But, you know, I created a business plan that was supposed to yield like 2.5 million within 12 months and just continue to grow. Based on what I was already doing, it was absolutely a no-brainer.
Wow.
It was feasible. It was safe. But what we didn't think about was a dang worldwide disaster that would take away human interaction.
Yeah. So this was right before, let me just, not to cut you off, right before the pandemic, you had a plan in place to kind of scale the business where obviously if the pandemic didn't happen, the next year you would have been pulling in 2.5 mil.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I bought the building at that time. It was 2018. You know, we was in construction for 2 years. It's a very old property. I had my funding set up. I did everything the right way, but you know, that's how the story goes.
Yeah.
And the building, you know, for a while was shut down. We all had to go virtual, and I still had to maintain
that building still has to. Yeah. That's the part of real estate that a lot of people may not understand.
You got to maintain that building, and it doesn't matter if you're virtual or not. And you know, my building is old. I believe it's historic, and that's another.
So there's certain things you probably can't even touch because it's historic.
No, not at all. So yeah, there's so much. You know, we've had trouble with the roof. We've had trouble with the sewer system. We've had trouble with the 300-year-old oak tree that's oddly in the middle of Hartford that has grown roots so big that they are in my pipes and bursting through walkways. So these are just things that, you know, yes, I could sell the building. I don't think I want the easy way out. I think because my goal in the bigger picture, what I have programmatically to run through there will yield more than my original plan ever. Yeah. And it's still based on children. So I will still be doing what I do in corporate wellness, but the building will run itself with therapists, providing clinical treatment for youth. So that old latchkey program that I had for 7 years, just more intensified. So I am still hopeful. I'm not at a place where I feel like I'm going to sell this building. I need to get rid of it. That's a part of the fight. That's a part of the story. And I want to keep going. The most recent situation was the building had to be rezoned.
Wow.
Do you know know, that sounds like a very simple thing to do. Just change the zoning.
That sounds like it's complicated. Just
You
from what I
know,
know
you
about
know.
zoning.
It took me 18 months to change the zoning of the building because it was in the middle of the pandemic, and you know how the systems
Everything.
were
It's
and the
already
courts
slow
were.
anyway.
And therefore, I still couldn't do anything with the building because it was zoned incorrectly. We couldn't get the fire marshal to go in there. It was so many little things and nuances that, you know, I struggled.
So what did you do during 18 months?
I pivoted through the pain, and I created corporate wellness, and I did virtual master facilitation. I became a public speaker. I utilized yoga. I utilized meditation, and I became the instrument that created these new services. So I created a really significant virtual business that I keep today because I feel like it didn't do me wrong. I don't know how I didn't have this before. And now my reach is significant. Like, Connecticut is not where it ends for me. This is my home. But we reach people all the way in Australia, all the way in New Zealand, all the way because of the online services. You'll be shocked at the cultural connection that happens when you meditate. People want to meditate. They want to learn how to slow down the racing thoughts. How do I turn my brain off? You know, and so it's like the pandemic, it absolutely was a hard lesson for me, but I'd like to say it has created more success like a blessing in disguise. Me. Yeah, absolutely. But my building is my biggest pain at the moment. It's really taking a lot of structure, a lot of dedication, and a lot of discipline to run the building and my business in tandem. So.
So the pandemic, that, like, I look at it as, it was one of the best things that happened to me. Obviously not great that a pandemic, but it slowed things down and allowed me to reevaluate life. It seems like for your business, it was something that you thought at first was, you know, a roadblock is killing my plans. But after going through it, you're able to make even more with some of the things you added on because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about
when
that.
The pandemic first came, I was working on an exit plan immediately. I was like, okay, well, there goes that. And I couldn't write it. You know, I know what an exit plan is. I know the components. I just couldn't write it. And the pandemic allowed me to go back into the spirituality that I hadn't been practicing because I was so busy running a business, creating a business, having babies, or whatever you want to call it. So I remember going into meditation, you know, asking the Lord to help me write the exit plan. And I went in and I came out with a whole nother business plan.
Yeah, not an exit plan, no. But another business plan.
Yeah, and I was just like, okay. And I tell you, like, what comes in my mind, I believe it. I believe it even though it sounds absolutely audacious to someone else because it came to me. And so I followed those thoughts. I sat more in meditation during the pandemic. I enhanced my skills so far. Before I used to sit in meditation maybe 20, 30 minutes. I got further training in the pandemic, you know. Now my training was 9 months at a time, and we would sit for an hour and a half in silence with our eyes closed. It's probably one of the hardest things because a lot of negativity comes up at first, especially if you're not used to this.
Yeah.
First of all, the brain is like, what the hell are you doing sitting here? Get up. Do you know all the things you could be doing?
Yeah.
And then there's the pain in the body that starts to come, you know? And so the discipline and the regulation that meditation brought me allowed me to sit with my mind. And so it wasn't in a scatter from the pandemic, but it was in a pivot focus. It was like anything, no matter what happens, you can change. You could flow into another experience. What does the world need? And so, yeah, meditation was birthed. Yoga was incorporated. Corporate wellness really became a thing because everybody overutilized the sedentary lifestyle. We all went from at least driving to work every day,
Yeah.
at least walking out the office to take a break, to sitting at our computer
Hmm.
with pajama bottoms on and a collar shirt at the top.
I love it. I keep a couple Zoom shirts like that. Let me just go off on a tangent. Like that's an underrated benefit of work from home is you don't got to get dressed. So that's time you're saving. That's less ironing. That's less outfits. More sleep.
Yeah, but you seem like a very disciplined person to work from home. I think work from home can go left or right
Good.
depending on your discipline. And even for people, like doing therapy online was absolutely hard.
But I don't think that's any different than if you were going to work in an office. Because you can go to work in an office for 8 hours and don't do any work. And just get snacks,
Yeah,
talk
but
about a
I
water
feel like,
cooler.
with therapy, we in your face. There's no doing the work. You got to
True.
show up for those people and you got to, for the most part, look in a better mood than them,
Yeah.
and I feel like therapists have really hard jobs because we're frontline.
Hmm.
It's easy to deal with someone over the phone. They could look and feel like whatever they want and their content doesn't align with that. Our
Mm.
content aligns with our mood. It'd be
Gotcha.
really, it would be hard to help someone heal if you weren't able to regulate for yourself.
Mm.
So I mean, a shout out to the therapists out there that was healing people while healing themselves.
Mm.
We
How
need
does
you.
that? How does that? So like I've heard this before. Like a therapist needs a therapist, and it seems like you have a couple like components there, like the meditating and the yoga. But like where do you go? Like who do
Mhm.
you talk? Do you have a therapist?
I have a couple
You have a
people
couple.
in my
Okay.
life. I have
Okay.
mentors, I have therapists,
Because
I
sometimes you got
have,
to vent, probably. I would assume with
yeah,
all that.
yeah, I have a clinical mentor. Um, and when things get very conflicting in the clinical world, if I feel like this is my crazy approach, I want to do this, she's the person that I would go to and I would
Mm.
share those thoughts. And she would, she'll, Miss Tamar, you've gone too far. Or, she'll be like, go with that.
Yeah.
You are resilient, go with that. Um, I'm not currently in therapy right now, but I've been in therapy and I find it to be an absolute need and I have access to my therapist.
Hmm.
After a while you get to a place where it's like, call you when I need you.
Mm.
And that's where I am right now.
Gotcha.
I have access to a financial mentor, a clinical mentor, a mental health therapist, and I also have friends that are therapists too.
Okay.
So that's where the boundary accountability people come in. Like, girl, don't be having that person venting on you all day, all night.
Hmm.
But yeah.
So with that, I want to go back because you said, you know, you found a way to kind of calm yourself while, I'm thinking about exiting, right? Like, where do you think you get that resilient mindset? Like, I know you spoke about you seeing your mother, being an entrepreneur and being very ambitious. Like, do you get some of that from her, or is it something else in life? Like, where do you get that mindset to be resilient through dealing with setbacks and tough times along your journey?
I clearly, it has to come from my mom and my dad. Both of them are trailblazers in their own right.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them came from nothing
Mm.
and have made amazing legacies for themselves. I think also I didn't like the story, the design of life that it seemed like, was given to me.
Mm.
I wasn't accepting the poverty. I wasn't accepting the culture negativity. I wasn't accepting it. So I think a part of me, I wanted a different story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just how I am. I don't think anything that is it. I think you have
Got it.
the ability to,
You always have a choice.
you can curate anything within to your life. It may not be the grand plan that you believe, but you don't have to be the
Mm.
person you were yesterday. And you don't have to get so lost in the thoughts that can't change the now.
Mm.
And so, yeah, even in the pandemic, I would like to say that I lost myself. I thought I was losing my business. And
Mm-hmm.
I created a wellness box. It was a literal box. And I put all the tools that I used to help myself ground myself into that box. So there was a sound bowl in the box.
Mm.
There was digital resources of me doing yoga. There was essential oils to help you practice breath work. And another thing that birthed out of the pandemic, sold out corporations were just buying them and buying them, using them as benefits, employee gifts. I made so much money from that, and then I just stopped because the pandemic eased up, and I started focusing more on the brick and mortar and the building back. But it just kind of shows me that when we can find some stillness, we can get from a place of survival to really being a creative, active part of life. You know, I don't want to just work and raise my kids and pay taxes. I want to make magic. And I think the magic is locked inside of us, hidden behind so much emotion.
That's a good point. I mean, I think with society, we're kind of put in a certain box, or like, well, you're supposed to be doing this, so this is what you have to do. Like you said, like you don't know, what you're capable of until maybe you slow down and then maybe rethink or pivot to trying something else, and then, look what came out of it. But that's scary though. For a lot of people, that's scary, and so like obviously, in 2020, we were forced to do that. But I look at that as that in every loss is a lesson, or every setback is a lesson. So the lesson in that shows, well, you were forced to do this. Well, what if you could proactively just do that?
From all the forcing of it, now I look at fear or complication with a little smirk. It's like, what is the universe going to teach me now? Because I've already been through the worst parts of it. So, and I know that every time I survived, I came out better.
It's another like notch on your belt. It's like, I survived this, and this is the lesson you took from it, or this is how I leveled up.
Yeah.
There's a growth that came out of it.
Yeah, and owning your flaws. A lot of time, there's nobody to check a CEO. Who will check me?
Yeah.
It's my business.
Yeah.
Who's watching my back end and my front end and my financial anything?
Well, if you're a public company, the board will definitely check you.
But for the most part, looking at grassroots organizations or startup companies,
you're the top.
There's no accountability, so your self accountability has to be top tier. And so that's something that I have right now that I feel like my accountability is up there, and I wish. And I only have accountability because I was able to sit with myself and own the things that I could have done better. And forgive myself and keep it pushing. Yeah.
Accountability, I believe, is key. Very similar. For me, like in 2020, a lot of things changed for me. Like one of the big things, and I've talked about before on here, but while I'm like, okay, well, now I'm not going to be moving as much. I got to be proactive about my own health. So I did like 100 burpees a day for 60 days and lost 30 pounds. That accountability was a big part of that, right? It'd have been easy to just say, oh, well, of course I'm not going to do it now. Everybody's saying, no, this is, but I had to be accountable and like hold myself to that. And then when you see the results, then it's like, okay, it was tough, but I know I did something right. Right. So like that action piece, like I'm a person that'll run fast, fall fast, get up and learn how not to fall again and be better for it, as opposed to like being a little more reserved and like, let's plan it out. Yeah. So how do you feel? Like, how are you on that spectrum when it comes to like failing to succeed, essentially?
I wasn't good at it at first. I thought the world was ending every time I failed. I thought, why? What am I doing wrong? Even when I did everything right, there was some times that I failed. Well, like I mentioned, now looking back, I realize every failure set me up to be better. And every failure created another part of me that I didn't have before. It opened up another level of wisdom. And it taught me something. And the key in the success is hidden in the failure. So once I get through it, if I can extract that lesson and lay it out for my next experience, it's almost like I got a cheat code for the next level of myself. Yeah. Because I didn't beat myself up. In the beginning, I struggled with beating myself up. Can't nobody talk crap to you like you. Yeah. In your head. Hello. And so I really had to learn a lot of skills that I now share. Like, I have the most romanticized self-talk because that's just what my personality needs. I talk to myself in the way that I talk to my bestie. I stop the imposter syndrome. I stopped saying I'm just a little girl from Jamaica because I still see the little girl from Jamaica. So when I fail sometimes, I used to be like, I'm not even supposed to be here. Right, like I should just be satisfied. And then there's another part of me like, the hell? Yeah. Who said that? Who said that? Take your time, feel your pain, cry those tears, and move through it. And every time I've ever did that, I've never failed. So I lean into pain. Pain creates the person that you want to become. If it was easy, everybody would do it. Hello. That's a fact. That's a fact. No, I love that. And that's a similar mindset that I hear from a lot of successful people. That's something that I hear in common is that on the other side of your fear is greatness, right? Like you can't be prepared for growth. You've never been there before. So if it feels scary, if it feels tough, then you're probably doing the right thing. Yes. So like, and that's similar. Similar fashion, like I would get in my head around certain things when things don't go the way I thought. Like the first time I ever was laid off, it was like, I'm a failure. But I didn't know a couple months down the line that was supposed to happen because look where I am now. Exactly. Right? That wasn't the opportunity. That wasn't the opportunity for me at that moment. It was good for that time, but we're on a journey, right? And it's just like you gotta understand that part of that journey you're going to have the bumps, but you need that because that's the only way we're human beings. We love comfort. But yes, imposter syndrome. Yeah. That is something I can totally relate to. Like you may run into a setback or a failure and you're like, I'm not even supposed to be here. I made it this far. You know, that's it. I should just be happy I'm in the room. And like, how do you like talk yourself out of that imposter syndrome? Like, hold on a second. You should be here. You are worthy. You do have the skill set. You are good enough. How do you like kind of overcome that negative self-talk that comes in your head?
Well, you know, sometimes you think you're over that too, because, you know, usually if you have the tools and things like that come up for you, you know what to do to kind of get it. And then, but it comes back. That's the thing about life. New goals come up and sometimes they're a little intimidating. Sometimes you turn your back on them. But specifically, I have a situation right now where I felt like I did deal with a lot of imposter syndrome. I was a government contractor when I was 18. So during the pandemic, I wanted to get back into that, right? I was trying to think of all the things that I could do. And so I did. I sold commodities such as mental health, corporate wellness, master facilitation. And the companies that I was going up against were multi-million-dollar companies that had been around for 100 years. And so that field was extremely intimidating. I would write contracts and it would just seem like there was already someone chosen before this contract was written. I would look at my competitors and it was just like their tools, their platform, their resources were beyond me. Even though I saw my differentiators, they didn't have the innovation. I was intimidated. And I started thinking, look at you, want to be all up in government contracting when you're making you're fine. Use your community, use Husky, use mental health, you're good. And then I started not liking the sound of that. First of all, who is that anyway?
Yeah.
Where is that coming from? As a Black woman, I want to be very mindful of my scarcity mindset and I want to knock it out anytime it tries to show up. But it did get me down.
Yeah.
It got me down for a whole year. I let my SAMS registration lapse. I was like, it's just not for me. But I'm back.
Yeah.
I had to tell myself, you just did 10 years. So for me, I had to stop and say, look what you've done.
Yeah. Look at your accomplishment.
Look what you've done. You were already in the room at the table eating cake and pie. You just didn't get your chicken dinner.
Yeah.
So go back to the table. I have received so much knowledge from just being in that landscape. And little do I know, that's the relationships that I'm building so that they will know my name the next time a contract come around. But I got to be in the game.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was one of the most intimidating games of it all.
but no one's going to pick you if you're not even at the table.
Yeah.
So I'm back like I never left. I'm going after my commodities, and I have expanded my reach. So I'm not just going after mental health against Aetna, you know.
Yeah.
I'm also going after master facilitation to teach social workers how to better engage, how to use mind-body strategies to understand the scope of ways to help their clients. So that failure, that doubt allowed me to go back in and be more maneuver better in the contracting space. I was narrow-minded in the contracting space.
Yeah.
Now I have a wider outlook. I have better mentors. I have better resources, better writing skills, better everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, that's that. I think that's just the growth after the pain, right? So it seems like we talked about a couple things around, setbacks, how you jump forward. What's on the rise? Like, what's on the horizon for you? Like, what's coming next? And how can people support you?
Yeah. So the building I'm hoping to open back up in April, and I will be doing a soft opening. So kind of just letting the community know this is what we do, this is what we practice. Mental health has always been something that we provide. So if anyone is in need of mental health, they can always reach out to us. We take a range of insurance and private pay, and we are dynamic, and we specialize in trauma. We are launching the online virtual wellness community. So I do want people to keep an ear out for that, because it's made for the busy person. It's made for the person with multiple responsibilities. It's made for people who are looking for a place and a space to ground themselves, to enhance their health right at the click of their fingertips. So I will be doing a lot of marketing. I'm going to head on the radio, Hot 93.7. I'm going to go to some local businesses and really talk about that. And hopefully I'll be able to incorporate a significant amount of people to join the wellness community so they could have live wellness on demand.
So who is your ideal customer?
Working professionals.
Okay.
So
anybody that's working like a job and dealing with the stresses of corporate life.
Anyone that is juggling so much in life that they believe they don't have time for mental wellness. They don't have time to make it to the gym after work because they need to get home, or they need to get to the other job, or they need to go pick up that kid. The person that is always at work because their job is so high performing that they go in at sun up and they don't get out until sundown. Or the person that just had a death in their family, but they still got to get up and go to work, and they have not had that space to mourn.
They only give you a couple of bereavement days.
Get back, get over it. And so you're more important than what you do, because without you, there's not going to be no do for you to do.
There you go.
Hello.
There you go.
So I just want people to believe in themselves and amplify their hearts. With self-love, I think that's the key. I had to really learn how to consistently love and believe in myself. And I think that's what Phoenix does. It activates this part of you that lives already inside of you, that believes in you more than anybody else, because nobody's coming to save you.
Nobody's coming to save you.
Nobody. I'm so sorry. I had to remind myself that the other day, because you forget. You're like, why is it this person helping me, or why can't I? And it's
the world owes us nothing.
I've been struggling and fighting, and then it's like, nobody's coming, baby.
Yeah.
Now what?
Now what you gonna do?
Now what?
Action is the only thing that you can take, and taking action and looking at, maybe like you said, self-evaluating. Maybe you do need a break. Maybe you need to incorporate some sort of break in between your work so that you can be a better version of yourself for work, for your family, your social network. What are some things that people, or that you can identify in people, okay, that this is definitely a service that you need? Because sometimes people don't know what the problem is, or they don't know that they have a pain point. What are some things that you've seen in people that you say, okay, well, that's a clear trigger of you need this type of service?
I practice a lot of energy work, sound healing, Reiki, And so I'm really in tune with energy.
What is that? I'm gonna pause right there. Like with the sound energy. Like talk to me a little bit about that, because I've seen it. I've seen you do it. I've seen other people, but I don't really know like the science behind it. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. Do you believe that there is a song for every mood that you have? If you're feeling down, could you turn on a particular music to kind of help you either feel through that pain or rise up from that pain?
Possibly. I do believe that sounds trigger things. Like I can hear a song and it'll remind me of like when I was 8 years old. It'll bring me back
Exactly.
to a
I
time.
can remember my mother humming and me sitting on her leg with my head on her heart, and I could hear her
It
heart.
brings you back to
and
a
the
certain
hum.
time.
So sound is a very powerful tool, and basically sound healing sends off vibrations into the air that penetrate to your skin, and it gives off such a harmonious sound that it regulates your energy. It calms your heart. It shifts your brain from a very active state to a more resting state. And when we're in that state, it's closest to sleep, which is where our body begins to regenerate, heal itself, right? Envision a brighter tomorrow, more creativity. So when I provide sound healing, it does so many things for people. It alleviates pain. People who have sciatica and back pain, they're laying out in a sound bath for an hour. It also allows people to process intense emotion that's harbored in different parts of the body, because the body keeps score. And oftentimes, depending on where you feel that pain in your body, it's a bigger message behind that based on your chakras, based on what you're holding on to inside. It also just slows down the busy mind, and it might take you to a place that you've been before that was a peaceful place for you. So sound healing is a tool that I use along with my voice to help people find home within themselves. And I've never had a person that did not enjoy it. Even at first, some people are like, oh, my ear, I don't like it. And then they wake up and they feel like, how long have
So
I been
people
out?
like just, okay, so I'm gonna go off of 10, because that just reminded me when I remember when I was younger. It was I think it was a high school trip. We went to Holiday Hill, and that's the first time I saw somebody get hypnotized. Now I believe in that. Like, is that similar to that almost, like, because it's like somebody talking and then like you allowing yourself to be, kind of put under somewhat of a trance?
I would say there has to be some similarities in connection, because I am guiding you. And there's a part of you that has to kind of allow me to be that guide. If you sat there with
you have to surrender almost.
Yeah,
like
you have to relax. And sometimes people get a little spooked out, and I'm like, what am I saying? What am I pouring into you? Why are you afraid for me to pour positivity into you?
We don't like change.
Huh?
Humans don't like change. We don't like something that we're not used to.
Oh, but they'll say it. They'll be like, I don't know. I'm afraid. And so that opens up a whole nother type of conversation. But so because I practice these things, what I can see on people that usually lets me know is energy is scattered, you're extremely anxious, and your aura is just all over the place. Sometimes if you're too much of an anxious person, you get too close to me, I can feel
you can feel it.
You. Right. So it's either I'm gonna regulate more so your energy could meet me halfway, or I'm gonna remove myself. But those are the people that I know, like, how would you like to practice 3 minutes of mindfulness with me to help regulate yourself? Because people don't realize that their energy is something that they can feel. They're just so disconnected to it. And so the energy of people, and meanness, anger, attitudes, that usually lets me know that you're in pain. When I see someone who's mean and stink and rude, I'm not offended by you.
There's something, there's something that they're dealing with.
I understand you are hurting, but we're not going to do it like this. So those are the things that I see in people. Pain harbored in your emotions, and anxiety harbored in your energy.
Appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you, sharing a little bit about yourself. Again, you can tell people where they can find you, talk about your website, and yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Hey
everyone, my name is Tamar. I am the CEO of Phoenix Wellness Solutions. And if you are in need of mental health services, corporate wellness, or you're looking for a virtual community where you can log in and experience some wellness, reach out to me today. You can find me on my website at www.phoenixpros.org. You could also find me online, Phoenix_wellness_solutions.